Oh, excuse me. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to excuse Chris Kemp today. He's out. So you guys need to bear with me. This is my first time
This meeting is being recorded.
conducting. All right, so bear with me here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we'll have a call to order, and we're going to have an invocation by Mino, and then a pledge of allegiance by Claude.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you gathering to this evening for this event. May you bless us in our discussion and in our decision. Please bless everyone present today, and each might be able to share their thoughts and respect one another. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business, we're going to do oath of office. We have some new members. Yep, thank you, on the committee. And who swears that? Okay. Looks like we have Seth Barreras, Christopher Howden, and Mino Ortiz. I thought we were just.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate that.
Oh.
Yes, if I can have Mino and Seth and Chris stand, please. If you'll just raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah, and that I will discharge the duties of my office in the Highland City Planning Commission with fidelity. Thank you.
Welcome. All right. At this time, we'll open it up for any unscheduled business. Anybody that would like to address the Planning Commission, we'll take that at this time. Just state your name and where you're at. Go ahead. Yep.
If you could turn your mic on right there, just push that till the light's green. Right there, it's green.
Okay, is that good? Yep. And maybe this is on the agenda already, but I wanted to address the Kevin Yu development. Is that already on the agenda?
That is on the agenda, so that'll be coming
so I
up.
just wait for that
Yep.
then? Okay.
Yep, please. Okay, anything not on the agenda that anybody wants to address? Okay. All right, so let's move on to, this will be a public hearing for the rezone for 4.12 acres from R140 to R130 zone. And I guess staff will present that, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. So like Jerry said, this is Kevin Yu requesting to rezone his property from an R140 residential zone to R130. This is the overall vicinity map. His property is the highlighted section right there. Just west of that is the Pace Manor subdivision, and just east of that is an undeveloped property. And as you can see, there's that Snowflake Drive that runs east and west, right there. That is planned to be a through street that connects over to the end of Snowflake over here, connecting to Spruce subdivision, which we will discuss a little further in a moment. The overall land use, our current zoning for this property is R140. In the general plan and our future land use, our proposed land use map is just has it under low density, and low density includes R140, R130, as well as R120. So this would be inconsistent with our goals set in the general plan. This is the overall concept plan. Again, this is a property of 4.13 acres. The proposed plan is 5 lots rather than, there's a chart really quick. This is dependent on this acreage. So in an R140, we would allow 4 lots. R130 is 5 lots, which is what's this proposed, which that actually says, that's a little typo right there. The proposed is 5 lots. And then R120 would allow 8 lots. The main accesses or road entrances to this little subdivision is coming from the north is 11200, or 11200 is that road right here that runs east and west, connecting it to the subdivision, and then the other connection is from Snowflake Drive on the west side of the property. And then this is proposed in our master plan for roads that this would connect eventually to, as mentioned before, that Spruce subdivision that's over on the east side of the property. For overall citizen participation, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting through Zoom on November 24th. There were 27 residents that attended through Zoom. Overall, the concerns surrounded the increased traffic that would be along that through street, and there are several residents that are proposing or requesting the requirement of a trail to be put in between lots 3 and 4, connecting that Manor Drive circle to this subdivision to Snowflake. We held, for the Planning Commission notification, we did what's required in the Development Code, posted in the Daily Herald, on the state website, and we also mailed the notification letters to the 500-foot radius around the property. We have received several letters or notifications, which are also put in the staff report, or included in the staff report, most of them involving the request for this trail between lots 3 and 4. We also, as Nathan did, send an email to y'all about the written correspondence about taking his name off of the petition that he formally signed, because he now disagreed with the idea of there being a trail right there. Yes, that there was a resident that asked to take his name off of the petition to sign for the approval of the trail because he now disagreed with it. As staff, we recommend that the Planning Commission approve this request or hold a public hearing, accept the findings, and recommend approval to the City Council of this case, subject to these stipulations. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Nathan is also here. We've looked up a lot of research surrounding roads and other subdivisions that we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there a point in which we can see the builder's plan so we know exactly where these lots are that we're talking about? Because I have not seen that in the notes.
Yes, that is here. It's a little difficult to see.
Oh,
Here's
okay.
a lot here, here's another lot. It's also in the staff report.
Okay, it is
if
on
you
that one.
zoom in a little
Okay,
bit.
it is that, okay.
Yeah.
So I just have a couple concerns that maybe somebody could address. As I looked at this, I see a couple issues. One, a safety issue on Manor. Looks like there was supposed to be a turnaround at the end of Manor, and one was not put there. So I'm curious what fire has to say with that and emergency vehicles. I know that there's a easement there for it, but it was not put there. But as I look at this, it looks like the intent is that Manor is supposed to connect into what is that called? Snowflake,
Mhm.
and not this other road that comes from the top down. And Nathan mentioned that that portion was in the county originally. And as I look at the plat, Nathan, it looks like that easement touches that property.
A portion of it does, yes, but not the full right of way.
Because it would also solve the connectivity issue that I've heard about with just kids walking to see other kids, which is why I think they're requesting that trail. But if you look at this in the aerial view, I mean, even that other road has a cul-de-sac built, where Snowflake dead ends now. But that road far exceeds, and I know they were given a variance, probably because they thought this would continue on later, or there was gonna be a cul-de-sac built, but you know, I don't know that you just ignore the fact that we have an issue where emergency vehicles can't turn around at the end of Manor. Which it could be resolved if Manor continued on and teed into Snowflake. Versus this other road that, I don't know how that got situated there. That's not a road. What is it? No, I mean, right now they're planning to put a road there. Right. Oh, you know, we're gonna need you to come to do I open this up for, those are the questions that I have. I think we have a connectivity issue, we have a safety issue that's existing that needs to be addressed with fire or whoever. And why, I think Nathan, you mentioned we just fixed that road recently. I'm not sure why we didn't use our easement that we have there to at least put the turnaround if it's not intended to go and tee into Snowflake. And then, so, those are the questions I have, if we wanna open it up for a public meeting, and then, so, why don't I do that now, is that
Yeah,
proper?
that's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and, did anybody else have any other questions?
You know, it's not a question, but it's more just a sort of philosophy that I'm opposed to this unless it's R140, and it's not out of any sort of animus other than just generally that's what we would prefer.
The R40.
Yeah, R140.
Is the zoning around this, any of that been rezoned to R30? Looks like are those all R40s in there?
It's all R140 around, but just south, that Manor subdivision along Manor Drive, that's all non-conforming, so it doesn't follow typical R140 standards, but density-wise, it's very similar.
But are the lot sizes in the R140, is it just the frontage that's not R40?
Say that again. Yeah, they're half-acre lots.
Okay, so that's a good question. But the square footage.
Sorry, yes.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and, open for public comment, and if anybody has input on those issues we just talked about, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and come up to the mic, state your name, and just so we have you on there.
I saw some recommendations, I was trying to read them. Were you saying that the city or the commission has a recommendation? I mean, I didn't capture what was on the previous slide. Could you just review what you're recommending at this point, so we just know where we're starting? Yeah, this. Is this a recommendation that you've made, or I didn't?
So the planning commission's charge is to make a recommendation to the city council. If the commission makes a recommendation to them, then we would suggest that they use these three stipulations.
Okay. Did you want, do we want to kind of like put on the table what the stipulations are? I mean, I could read these, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page before we make comments, because if we're already in agreement, everybody might be happy, but if we're not, I mean, I just don't know what you've got on here.
So these are three standard, stipulations that we have. One is conformance with the concept plan that they've submitted. Two is, providing the connection to the east. That's was planned with the Pace Manor. And, three is stubbing the road to the east.
So are you saying that you are recommending that you do the rezone to R130?
So again, if the commission chooses to recommend approval, then we would suggest that they include these stipulations.
These are the drafts. Should we
Okay.
accept what he's presented? They've written it up for us
Okay,
to be able to adopt this if we agree to it.
okay, all right.
And so this, right now, we're opening up the public meeting to kind of hear everybody's input. I kind of heard my concerns and Chris's
Right.
concerns, so.
Okay,
If we're all in agreement, then somebody will make a proposal a motion to accept it that way.
accept it as is.
Or we'll accept it with our conditions that we decide.
okay.
Or reject it with reasons why, like, we want to know more about the safety issue or whatever.
Sounds good.
Okay.
My name is Brent Reed. I live at the end of Manor, so the north end of Manor, adjacent to this subdivision. I have, over the previous 3 months, spoken with,
Can you pull up the map that would show where he lives?
it's just right where the Manor hits right there, right side.
On
Yeah,
the right.
Right there, right where
Okay.
the pointer is right now. That's where I live. And so,
Well, it's,
it's non-conforming.
actually his.
I think I'm actually less than half an acre.
R120, I think.
And there is currently, on my property line, an opening in the fence through which members of the community from all directions travel through there and through the fields. I know that there are residents who travel from Snowflake, or from the Spruces over to Snowflake, from Manor up, from Snowflake down, and in all directions, really. That's a crossroads for all the four surrounding neighborhoods. And
So would you say the kids mostly use that?
mostly kids, but adults too.
Okay.
Definitely adults as well. So a couple of concerns. The plan is to essentially wall off the south end. And so there are kids who are going to continue to travel around. I've had conversations with a number of people on almost all the city council. One of them suggested, well, you don't really have a safety issue. You just got to control the kids. I think of it more as water. If you dam up the water, it's going to flow somewhere else, and you can't really control the kids. I know that in July we had a fatality on SR 92 on the north side, and there's no safe passage around there to connect the neighborhoods. So if we create a wall there, I think we are creating a safety issue.
So do you feel there should be a connectivity there?
I think there should be connectivity, at least for pedestrian traffic. Like I said, I spoke with approximately 50 homes on all sides of it, and 97% of the people, I heard there was one person who retracted, but it's still the vast majority of people want connection. I hesitate to bring this issue up, but it's already a ward area, and those boundaries can change. So that's the thing is, some people said, "Oh, those boundaries change." Well, for more than one reason, it's an interconnected community, and walling that off is going to be problematic for the sense of community and for safety. And I know that there are some people are here who are concerned about the lot size. That is a value to me, and I know that the city cares a lot about lot size. That's a strong value. I don't know what you're gonna decide to do. But I think if you're gonna give on the lot size, I would really hope that you would also give, express value to the issue of safety and community, which I think are also high value, important values for the city. Trails are an important value to the city, but when I think of using the word trail, to me, that's like, oh, that's, how nice, isn't that fun, that there's a trail we could go on? I'm thinking about it as a safety issue. I have kids, 7 and 9, who roam the neighborhood, and there's just over 100 kids that surround this lot, 100 children, and you can't control them all. I want the connection, and so if we are gonna change the lot size, I think that the development, and one of the city council members told me that there are lots of places in the city where we don't have sidewalks, but we're gonna build them, and he said, it just requires more development. Well, this is the development that drives that, and if we make good decisions as we progress along in our development, our city will be safer, it will be more connected. And so I understand there are some people who say, don't change the lot size. If that happens, it's kind of a different situation, because I don't think you can require anything from the builder, and I don't think the builder has the intention of doing it, but maybe they will. I think that would be the right thing to do, to develop well, instead of just take the cash out of the lot and move on. This builder, I don't mean any disrespect, but this builder is in Australia and really doesn't have in fact, I had a conversation with him a few weeks ago, and he told me he doesn't really get the culture of Utah, or at least the culture of Highland. I think I do. I've lived here for nearly 10 years, and the community is really important to me. So I don't want a builder from the other side of the world squeezing the land here, taking the cash, and then somebody else moves in, and now we've got a wall that bifurcates our neighborhood.
So you're a perfect person to talk to. So you live right there, so right now it's very dangerous.
Well, it's dangerous if you go out on the highway.
No, it's very dangerous for an emergency vehicle cannot turn around at the end of that street, which puts all those people right there in danger, and I'm not sure what the county was thinking when they did that. There is a turnaround or a cul-de-sac that's supposed to be. My question would be, if you had to choose between putting a cul-de-sac in, like fully developing that cul-de-sac, or continuing the road and tee into Snowflake, which one of those would you pick?
So again, I have a 9-year-old. What do I have? They keep changing. A 9 and a 10-year-old girls, and there are lots of kids in the neighborhood, and they play in the streets all the time, year round. And so I don't fully understand. And now I can imagine it, but I don't have a clear idea of what the safety issue is you're talking about. So I'd like to hear.
Fire truck can't, when it gets to the end of your street, you would have to back up to get out of there. And in the case of a fire or something, that's not a safe thing for the firemen or the people, because it's a big rig.
So
If a ambulance went down there, they too have to turn that vehicle around to drive out of there with whoever they picked up. And so, just with all of our codes, the longest street you're supposed to have, I think, is 80. What is it? What was the code what was the longest dead end street you're supposed to have? I think it's like 80 feet or something like this. So this thing is like, it's like one lot width. Yeah, which is what this is. Well, this is a dead end right now. So per the safety code, the fire department, and everybody, this street is way too long, without a cul-de-sac. So a cul-de-sac, that easement that's at the end of that cul-de-sac is designed for a fire truck, if one of those kids get hurt playing in the street, to turn around and be able to drive straight out.
Yeah, okay, so I'll address that.
I'm sure the fire department's aware of that situation.
I'll address that.
So that's why I was saying, would you rather the city go in and put a full-on cul-de-sac in there so that we fix that safety issue, which we might have liability over? Or would you rather the street go straight and tee into Snowflake?
Right. Okay,
For safety, those are the only two options.
yeah. So no one's ever asked me this question before, and you're right, I'm the person who would be impacted by it the most.
Right, that's
Me
why I-
and my neighbor across the street.
Right.
So I hear three scenarios. There's leave it as it is.
No, that's not safe.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a choice you could make.
No.
Well,
Not according to our ordinances, we can't.
up to this point, no one has changed it.
I know, I don't think anybody realized that that's street, well, and now we're in an entitlement issue where we have a responsibility where we can fix this.
Sure.
But the city already has the means in which to fix that because on the plat, there is a easement for a cul-de-sac at the end of
Right.
that road.
Okay. I'll address it, but will you allow that in the realm of possibilities, one could not change it?
I don't believe we can.
Okay, so you're saying the fact that somebody mentioned it, now you have to act?
Yeah, if you see a hazard, you can't just say, oh, I'm not gonna look at the hazard anymore.
Okay. I didn't, I feel like I've stepped on a landmine.
No, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to.
No, by picking, you're not committing to it.
Sure,
I'm
okay.
I'm just trying to get a feel of,
All right, I'll just tell you, in my mind,
yeah.
and I didn't anticipate that anybody was going to change that. So in my mind, you could leave it as it is. You could build the road through, or you could put in the cul-de-sac.
Right.
So those are in some universe, you could do one of those three things.
And I'll tell you what I would pick, but go ahead.
Sure. So you kind of got me on my heels because I wasn't thinking like, oh, man, we've triggered something. I did not think that was going to happen at any point. Okay, yeah, you've got my mind spinning here. But I would have said, if you hadn't said what you just now, I would have said I would be looking at if you put a through road in, suddenly all of those children, I mean, there's a group of boys who roam around.
Connectivity.
Yes, they have connectivity, but I'm saying there are a group of boys who roam around the neighborhood all summer and after schools playing in the streets. And now you've got a through street. Now suddenly it's a game of Frogger. And there occasionally are people who come down the street that are not from the neighborhood and they don't really know that it's a neighborhood full of kids. And they'll zip down and then they suddenly get to the end and go, oh. But as soon as you take that out, it's going to be a thoroughfare. And I think everybody on the street cares about that. And so in my mind, you are making it more dangerous by putting it through. Now, there have been ambulances that have come down there once in a blue moon. And so what I hear you saying is the risk is that they're going to have to do a U-turn. And so they're going to be delayed by, 30 seconds while they turn around. A fire truck...
Like the fire truck can't turn around.
Can I ask you a question too? I'm sorry, it's Audrey right here. Does either side of your street where it dead ends, is there sidewalk?
Yes, on both sides.
On both sides?
Yes.
So if we connected the street, there still would be both, sidewalk?
True, but the kids treat
they're
the
not-
street as a playground.
Well, all the rest of us live in neighborhoods with
Agreed.
streets that go through and our children aren't dying.
Agreed. I don't know, I guess I'm standing here.
I have the kid with the skateboard and longboard that zooms everywhere, so I do understand this concern.
Okay, great. I mean, I appreciate that you at least recognize what I'm
I
saying.
do.
So, and maybe...
But is it your thought that they would just hang out on the trail and not go to the other roads?
It's my thought that if you put a trail through, they would roam through the
Just hang out on the
safely connect to the other neighborhood, and there would be no car traffic to contend with.
Can you
So-
help understand, where would the trail go? Or what is your recommendation that the trail should go?
So, I mean, I don't...
Right there.
I don't have like a strong recommendation as to where it could go. It seems most logically that it would just extend straight down Manor right between lots 3 and 4. That would be my preference.
That would be the logical place, because it hit the road
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And so I guess like to kind of complete my purpose for standing now, although you have completely triggered a whole nother train of thought. My thought is, if you contemplate, if you are going to change the zoning for this person, I would seek the concession that you're actually making the community better in the process. That would be my opinion. Now, I respect my other neighbors. I think there are other people here who will speak to the desire to keep it at 140. Personally, I would make the trade to keep the neighborhoods connected. If you left it at 140, there probably wouldn't be an opportunity to create the connectivity.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a requirement.
So, yeah, so for me, that would be my preference, but I definitely respect the desires of other people to maintain their 140 for whatever reasons they have. I'm sure, I think they have legitimate reasons.
But we could keep it R40, continue Manor and tee it into Snowflake and accomplish, because we can tell them.
I bet you're gonna upset Kevin Yu in the process, and I don't think he was anticipating. Kevin Yu is
on the other side?
That's the name of the developer.
The applicant.
Isn't he on Zoom? But isn't he on this call? I thought he would be participating since it's his desire to.
There are a couple unknown numbers. He may be, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
Anyway, I think he'll be surprised if that happens. Maybe he'll be happy. I don't really know. But and so the last thing I'll say is that, well, okay, so you're saying that now potentially you're going to put in the cul-de-sac.
Well, but if you put in a cul-de-sac, let's say they decide, hey, we have a liability here, and they put in a cul-de-sac, that's what I would prefer, because then you still have the issue you're talking about. You can.
Well,
And a cul-de-sac is desirable for real estate to be at the end of a cul-de-sac.
well, I'm at the end of a dead-end street, which is more desirable because I have more property. So I guess my final comment would be, if I have now just triggered that the city is going to take some of my land, as well as my neighbors, I'm going to feel bad that I did a disservice to my neighbor across the street. I mean, I know that some people are going to say, oh, I love a cul-de-sac because it is safer, but
No, just so you know, I came into the meeting with these concerns, not anything you said.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I
and I was going to ask to talk if somebody at the end of that cul-de-sac was here, so.
And I'm here.
Nothing you have said. It's
Sure,
triggered.
I mean, I don't think it's personal and anything, but it will affect
Yeah,
me very personally.
No, I came into the meeting, I'd already emailed Nathan for the code and why is this a dead end, and why isn't this?
Right,
You
okay.
know, I mean, think of the two property owners up there that now have this road that's gonna go, which before they just had land, now they have a road intersecting on the sides of their property.
And are they allowed to put up a fence? And is there danger whether they can even fence their property or not, which says whether they can have animals or not, and all that?
Right. So here's my final thought. If this meeting, if this conversation triggers, oh, great, now we're gonna put in a cul-de-sac, and in the end, there is no path, I will feel pretty bad that I went down this path thinking that I was gonna create more connectivity, and in the end, there is no connectivity, and I've just lost a big part of my front yard. So, does anybody on the commission think that there's a path? Like, if we do the chances of the path being put in increase if there's a cul-de-sac, or is it just a completely separate issue?
So, and I'm just, so members know here, for me, if, let's just say the cul-de-sac goes in, we would have to probably grant the R30 to be able to get the path, unless he's just a good guy and he's gonna say, I'm gonna go ahead and put the path to the cul-de-sac. I mean, some developers are like, no, that makes sense, because those new homeowners are gonna want that same connection.
Exactly, those homeowners are gonna be wanting this.
We couldn't force them to do it.
Right.
But I don't know that we really want to go to an R30 if everything around it is R40. Like, that's a little island, you know, we like it to progress, you know, R40, R30, R20, not R40, you know.
Yeah,
R30
well, I mean,
right in the middle.
my lot right next to it is not R140. So to me, it's not a big deal that the next lot over is in between.
Well, and as I look at his layout, you know, if that changed where Manor connected, he could probably still do the 5 lot. You know, I don't know, I just think there's some questions for
Mhm.
me that I would want answered prior to putting that road up at the top
Right.
versus trying to maybe, because that's a minor road, I don't think that's gonna be a heavy cut through, everybody's gonna start using
Well,
that.
I'll tell you what,
What's
everybody.
gonna happen is Snowflake, when it connects, that'll become a, you know, people will use that road. I don't think they're gonna cut through your neighborhood to, it'll be you guys going up to the ward that way instead of coming around SR 92.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid that the teenagers are gonna cut the major intersection by going through our neighborhood. And I don't know if that's maybe true, maybe that's not true. But, I guess, I was just gonna say,
But you are for a trail of some kind, if that's where
the
this is.
trail, yeah, if, I mean, I understand in the R-140 situation, you can't ask it of the builder. I would hope that they would want to improve the community. If it's R-130, I really hope that you require the concession, because otherwise, our community's worse off. And me personally, if it ends up that there's a wall there, and now my kids have to, you know, if they were
Yeah.
going to, they go all the way around, and we have a cul-de-sac, I'll feel like I've lost twice. So,
I
that's my opinion.
Can I share
Okay.
something with you too that we kind of have to deal with the trails?
Yeah.
So there's one who's caring for it, maintaining it, and lots of turmoil in Highland City about community responsibility for that. Then there's the fence issue, and if both property owners block the fence off, then we hear it's not safe because there's no visibility. But then we have the loss of privacy because people are, if we do a fence that, you know, dictates the fence has to be visible and see-through, then people can look right into their windows and they're not happy with that. So we have that kind of issue. So those three things are, it limits what they can do on their property if they don't have a fence, if they have equipment or animals or and things like that. So these are things that we have to deal with that too. And as a community, if you wanted to share some of those things, and if community's willing to work together to solve these things, that helps as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're saying. I
I'm
mean,
just saying these are
I
things-
am willing to do,
Saying when you put
I'm
that
just
trail
saying-
between 3 and 4,
Yeah.
if 3 and 4 fence it,
yeah,
and that trail's only this wide, it becomes an alley.
yeah.
And then that's,
Officers can't see in there, and the kids get in there.
and that's people who run or walk, you know, it's not safe, and that's where people have incidences there, and it creates a hidden area, and so those are the things that we have to deal with. So I just wanted you to hear some of the things that we have to deal with when we do something like this.
Yeah, two things I would just say to that. One is, if my presence there, and I expect to be there for a long time, is like, if you need somebody to help maintain it, then maybe I'd be willing to do that, if that helps to grease the wheels on this thing. And the other thing is the safety thing. I mean, it's one lot wide, and our neighborhood is a very safe neighborhood, and especially if there's no through traffic, there are no strangers that come down there. And on the other side as well, I mean, it's just like a very quiet space. I just don't see much risk of anything
Gotcha.
bad happening there.
Thank you.
Just don't see it.
Thank you, appreciate that. All right, anybody else? And please just, state your name and your address.
My name's Lynn Ritchie. I live at 11071 North Manor Drive.
Okay.
I'm the second house, from the end on the west
next to him.
side,
Okay, you guys are neighbors.
across from Mr. Reed.
Oh, I got you, okay.
A couple of things that I wanted to address on the record. I sent a letter to all of you, so, you've had my letter regarding the trail. I've lived here 40 years, raised 7 children. We got along without a trail then. So a trail to me is a nice to have, but not a must have. Originally, I thought it was a good idea. I even signed the petition thinking about it. But then I reflected back on my days where I served in the city, and trails are problematic. Who owns it? Who has the liability for a child getting hurt on it? And who's going to maintain it? The city has trails. I used to say I lost my shoe up on the trail, up in the canyon, in one of the cracks. And I would tell the city that because of the crack that wasn't repaired. And so the maintenance is a problem. Trails also have a safety issue with, you get property owners that put up their fences. Now you've created a tunnel and a safety issue, especially at night. We've got those all over the city, and they're problems, and have been for many years. So a trail is a nice to have, but not a must-have. Now, regarding the connection to Manor, please, if you feel there's a big safety issue, a cul-de-sac, not a through road. The students in the morning would cut through there, going 90 miles an hour. They come off of 4800, would cut through going and trying to beat the light. And so that is a safety issue and a real problem. So I would beg you, if you feel you need to do something, do a cul-de-sac and not a through road in Manor. Manor, we've had that come up before. A developer tried to develop there, but ended up not doing it. And all of the residents in Manor are opposed to a through road. So please just do a cul-de-sac if not a through road. And so those are my comments. I'd appreciate it. Cul-de-sac and also the trail, I think, is a nice to have, but not a must-have.
So there, it looks like there's a trail there now.
A trail?
Like when I look at the aerial, there's a clear path from Snowflake to that dead-end road.
Yeah, it's not it would be a field.
But no, it's a used, if you look right there, and you live right there, there's a path right there that's pretty well worn that you can see it from an aerial.
Yeah, a worn one in the weeds and stuff. Yeah.
So there's traffic there.
Yeah. My thought is, what's best is let the homeowners agree on putting a gate, and then you've got the homeowners take responsibility. They have agreement that people can come through fair. You don't have any liability issue with the city, and you don't have any maintenance issues. So let the two homeowners agree to do what they feel is necessary there, are my thoughts on that.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say that I'm waiting for a compelling reason to rezone this, and I haven't heard it.
You're not gonna get it from us.
All right, please state your name.
Jason and Danielle Brown. Our house is it's the top right of the.
To the east of the proposed
We're
new
4677
connector street.
west. So we have a 1 acre lot.
So that lot right there that she has her mouse on.
Exactly.
So you're gonna have that road that goes right
Yes.
next to you.
Yes, and we're not in favor of having a road there.
Okay.
I'll start with that.
What was that property originally for?
So 6 acres, but if you look at that whole big rectangle, that was originally 6 acres. The Duncans owned that when they built the second house. So they built the house on the left first, lived in it, and then built the house on the right, and then they sold off the 1 acre parcel and the other 4 acres, and that was the only access to it at the time.
So.
Oh, right.
Does that make sense?
So Snowflake must, okay. All right.
Snowflake wasn't there.
Right.
Snowflake is
Snowflake
in the
is-
last 3 years is
Yep.
when that's come up.
So I'm a school teacher. I teach orchestra, and actually Seth's son was in our orchestra a little while ago. I was teaching the Duncan's daughter, and they were parent volunteers, and the Duncans got called to go be the service missionaries and work at the Nauvoo Temple, and they only had 2 weeks to leave. And we had just sold our house in Murray, and he said, "How would you like to move in?" And we never could have afforded to live in Highland, but the Duncans sold us their home for what they owned on it because they felt inspired by a teacher who had made a difference in their life. Just to the east of us is Virginia Peterson, who spent 30 years teaching. On the west of us is the Moravecks and
We're Paces, like the original.
the original Paces, and the Fentons, whose the dad is a vet on disability, and the mom works at the hospital as a cook. We're pretty regular people, and that whole area is pretty rural. Most of my neighbors are cattle. If you go straight across where that road would lead into, that's where the Hamlins have more than 25 head of cattle right now. If you go just to the east of us, that's where Virginia has her prize-winning horses, who no one's allowed to ride. Her grandson takes care of her. She's 84 now. There's chickens. They're going to build right where that red border is about 8 feet from my barn. This is pretty rural area, and it's done by people who live here in Highland, who contribute to this community, who care a lot about it. You should know the reason why this planner isn't here is because he isn't here. He has never been here. He probably never will be here. He's operating on behalf of a large trust in China, who's investing millions of dollars in different things, and is operating from New Zealand or Australia. And they saw a plot of land in Highland that they said, hey, I don't know why no one's buying this. Let's buy it up, divide it as small as we can, make as much money off of the Utahns as possible, and then we can go back and put it back into our communities, or probably just our bank account. So I don't see any compelling reason for you to change the current zoning to maximize the profits of a foreign investor who really has no reason to care about what happens to me, or the widow next door, or the vet that's just across the way. All they want to do is divide this land up smaller so they can build big houses on small lots.
So if this foreign guy sold you that strip next to you, you think you'd buy that?
Oh, yeah, I would love to have that.
The Fentons and us would divide it up and happily.
I was just curious.
If only we could afford land in Highland.
Okay, that's good input.
Yeah, part of my concern is with a child with special needs, adding more traffic to our road is not something that I want to do. To have a road bisecting, between those two houses is not attractive to us. And
Right.
We have a fence that runs all along that line now. What's going to happen to that?
Right.
We have a lot of concerns. It impacts our entire property line on that, whole
I
side.
understand.
So,
Okay, well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Anybody else? Sure.
I noticed that you mentioned the trail that's evident from usage. Do you have what's your thought about that?
Well, whenever we develop land and there's a nature trail that's being used constantly, we try to incorporate that in a project. Obviously, this is a heavily used.
I say amen to that.
Yeah, this is a heavily used trail. Clearly, it's one of the things you look at when you're developing a property. You find out who's using that trail, because they're going to, like you said, you block one area, the water's going to flow.
Water goes somewhere else, exactly.
So there is a concern, and then when you find out it's human beings,
Right.
kids, then that's a concern.
Right.
And so it's just stuff that you have to take into consideration when you especially when you're dealing with parcels where it's like a donut, you got all these other parts around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that.
No,
Thank you.
that's why I asked.
The road connecting from Snowflake to the east makes sense to me.
Right.
Because the kids cutting through in school that we're concerned about, that distance is so much longer. I don't think you'd have that problem of that safety issue, so.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Ritchie, just a quick question, sorry, it's me over here. What makes you feel like there's a certainty that kids would be cutting through there? Have you had problems up to this point with kids coming through there thinking that maybe it connects?
Mm-hmm. No, I've watched them on Wasatch, Wasatch Drive over by, there's a church across the street on SR 92.
Yeah.
And I've watched them cut through there. I walk that area and around the trail, and they've been cutting through there, and they go fast.
Uh-huh.
And so I know they would cut through, just trying to get through our subdivision and over to there, or down to the light and try and make a turn, so.
So you're talking about kids coming from the school and trying to avoid that light, but
Right.
kids that live north, maybe in the Alpine area or
Right, they're
places like
coming
that.
southbound on 4800.
So the light on
And it's a
48.
long light, and so
Yeah.
they try to make a quick getaway.
Yeah,
So if it's going eastbound, it wouldn't save them any time.
yeah.
So they're inclined to wait.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone online that would like to say anything? You can just raise your hand and I can ask you to unmute. Okay, there is no one that has raised their hand.
Okay. So there's nobody else, we'll close the hearing and, have discussion.
I was wondering actually, Nathan, if you can help us, or at least me understand, as I looked, just like we were talking, as I looked the parcel map, it doesn't seem like a snowflake was never meant to have a circle, but then the map does show a circle on the opposite road. Was that ever the intention?
I think that's a temporary turnaround for safety until,
Right, oh, that was temporary,
until it does go through.
okay.
I gotta turn my mic on for a minute here, and I'll go through some
Oh,
history
I'm
for
sorry.
you.
I was just gonna answer Mino's question. So Jed Robinson, who did Snowflake, they required them to add that spot, and they wouldn't let them do a cul-de-sac, because they wanted it to go all the way through Snowflake. And same thing, if you go to the other end of, on the Spruces, where they call it Snowflake, where it goes right in front of there, they also restricted that so that it would be open. Jed Robinson also, when they did Snowflake, came before the commission and asked if he could do smaller lots and rezone to R130. He still lives there, and the commission didn't approve his request for R130 when he made it several years ago. So might be further evidence to have the same standard that we met for people who lived here,
Right.
than people who don't.
Understand. Is there somebody online that had a? Okay.
Okay, so, I'll zoom back out.
Can I ask you a question, Nathan, then?
Yeah, let me go through some history first, and then,
Okay.
and then maybe that'll answer questions you have. So let me start with Pace Manor, which is in the upper left corner, which is, yeah, right here. You'll notice that it does have a temporary turnaround on the east boundary of the project, where it abuts the project. It has, the right-of-way has been extended all the way to the east, and a temporary turnaround for, as you've discussed, for emergency vehicles and trash trucks and stuff has actually been built. And so, whether it's R130, R140, there'll be a connection from that point, going, east into the property. If you go further east, to, what is known as the Spruces, keep going right there, that the plan for that street is to connect, there and go west and make that connection. When Pace Manor was originally proposed, there was a proposal to do a cul-de-sac at that point, and an engineering study was done. One of the issues in this area that we had was lack of access and some infrastructure issues, and that's one of the big reasons we're doing connection. One of the issues we have in Highland as you drive around is the lack of connectivity. And so over the last, 10 years or so, we've tried to work on connectivity in general. So now if you drop down to, it's called Highland Manor Estates, which is right there, and you can zoom in right on that cul-de-sac there, Kelly, if you could. Go there. Now, we can pull up the plat in a minute here. Highland Manor Estates was actually approved in the county, I think prior to incorporation by the city, if I remember correctly. As a gee whiz factor, it was one of the, original subdivisions, when the city did the original sewer bond, to put sewer in the, city. So next time you have a Trivial Pursuit game, you can use that. Anyways, you'll notice that the original subdivision was approved with a cul-de-sac. That yellow line right there is actually right-of-way that the city owns. You'll notice on the east side, it's about, 10 feet, west side, 10 feet or 15 feet with, in the house, and same on the west side. So the city does have the ability, if they wanted to, today, to go in and reconstruct and put a cul-de-sac in at this point. Why back in, I'd say about 6, 8 years ago, when this road was reconstructed, and the reconstructed the cul-de-sac wasn't done, it was because the plan was to try to connect that to the north. Now, that's been controversial, as mentioned, over time, to connect that to the north. Every connection we do is controversial, as you know. And when we did Pace Manor, the Planning Commission determines that connectivity is part of subdivision, and there was a lot of opposition to keeping that as a cul-de-sac, and one of the a lot of the opposition was from Highland Manor Estates, because they didn't want this connection to go through, and having to if that ended in a cul-de-sac, it would increase the probabilities that connection would go through. Now, if you zoom in, you can go a little farther. Thank you. If you go a little farther, you'll notice that the road and pavement, because it was designed to be a cul-de-sac, there is some road and pavement that doesn't go all the way to that north property line. Can you point that out, Ms. Kelly? Right there. So, if the city was going to connect that road north, we'd be looking to try to square up this right-of-way between, what that cul-de-sac bulb is and that little portion there. So we'd have to contact, work with those owners there.
But you would probably trade.
That would be the idea.
Yeah, you would trade the big portions that you're no longer going to use for the little tiny pieces.
That would be the ideal, yes.
So right now.
So right here,
we could go in and just carve that circle out. Whatever's there, we could just make a cul-de-sac.
the city actually owns this as right-of-way, right here.
See where the yellow line is?
You want to click on that, Kelly?
If you look at your yard, they
Right
own
there.
up into your yard. See?
Well, it's a street, so that's owned
Right.
by the city.
So what I was saying is, if you had the choice between a cul-de-sac and the road going through, if you wanted to keep your yard the way it is, you would just give them that little tiny piece where his arrow is, or that big piece where those trees and everything else is. And then the road would go straight. It's kind of how because right now, you could stop that road from going straight because you own the piece that we need to get the road going. But then the city, if they feel a liability issue or whatever, will then go, okay, well then I guess we have to put the cul-de-sac in, and then they'll go in and carve all that out.
If you could speak into the mic, if you're gonna talk, just so people on Zoom can hear.
If the city decides to do a cul-de-sac, they're gonna chop out a big part of the place where I was playing catch with my daughters, today.
So you would be motivated to just trade that little piece.
Right, but what I wanted to ask is, if they did that, would they just pave over my lawn And they wouldn't compensate me in any way?
Correct,
No, because you built onto the,
because it's owned by the city. You technically you don't own that property.
you kind of trespassed.
But that's a different issue. So, what we have here is we have an issue where an applicant has come forth to rezone property, right, to the north.
Right.
And then we have an issue that on the south where we have a situation where a subdivision that was approved by the county, it doesn't conform to our current standards. Now, we can't go back in time and say, hey, you need to conform, but we do have an issue that needs to be addressed.
Right.
So, which is separate from Mr. Yu's
Right.
rezone.
And I'm not trying to tie this to.
Right, so.
But I can solve that with that, if we go.
Right, so from consideration from a planning commission, because you are dealing with a conceptual plan, it's, all right, do we want to rezone this? Yes or no? That's one thing. But you can also say, look, hey, we're looking at this conceptual plan, and either way, whether it's R130 or R140, we have street connectivity issues, and our recommendation would be, we need to connect north-south, or whatever your recommendation would be, with that.
But can I ask you just one more question?
Yes.
Could Mr. Q, could he take Snowflake and go straight all the way to the right and put another temporary cul-de-sac and just put lots on either side of that road and be done?
He could.
Does do utilities work that way?
I don't know. We haven't gotten to that level of
But
depth.
he could just extend that road, because it's headed towards the road we
Yes.
want, and not have the, leave that a cul-de-sac or left alone. Don't put that other road up at the top. I don't think that's right for the two people on either side. But just come straight across. You could put a cul-de-sac, don't change the zoning, put 4 lots on it.
There's lots of, and it's been a long time since I've jumped in on this one, and it was with the prior owner, when we did layouts. And one of the challenge, and so there's a lot of different options. One of the things that our code does allow, like you see with Pace Manor, is that when you are extending or stubbing out a road, your maximum lot length and all that kind of stuff doesn't apply, because if you did that, you would never stub a road out. You'd all do cul-de-sacs and things like that. So we do these temporary turnaround things, like we do with Pace Manor. So one of the challenges with Manor Drive, why people haven't wanted to extend it north, is if you look here, you create issues with lot frontage going north, right? Because you take this road here, and you've got your, thank you, and you've got your, if you do a full public right-of-way, 54 feet, then it chops the land up, and you can't get your lot width and your lot area and all that kind of stuff.
What if the front is this way, on Manor?
Huh?
What if the front is facing Manor, but continues up?
Well, either way, in laying them out and trying to go east also off of Snowflake, in laying those out, there was issues trying to do that. So
He just went straight with, just did Snowflake, which saves
Yes.
them another road cost.
right,
I mean, if it were my piece of property, I'd just go straight, cul-de-sac, put four lots, right? I mean,
so anyways, his property, he can
I know.
split it out. So
Usually they want direction, like when you
right.
tell them no, you want to give them some.
Right, so, we looked at, in the past, we've looked at all kinds of things. I don't remember all the issues, I just remember, now, he's done a couple of things to add more area to the lot, which helps.
Okay, well, that was a question I had.
So that's kind of the history on it.
Okay. Why don't we hear from our commissioners, Chris?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm opposed to this R140 is where my head is.
Anything with the layout or connection or?
Well, I would just tell the landowner, it's R140, would you kindly go away and come back to us with the R140 plan?
Okay.
And the rest of it is not that important to me, until they come back with another plan.
Okay, that's a good approach. Seth?
I've had a lot of thoughts throughout the last 45 minutes. Number one, I do think that the opinions and the lifestyles of the people who are living here within our city, our citizens, is fairly important compared to the preferences of a developer. At the same time, you know, he does own the land, and there are the rights that go with that ownership. I'm not sure that it would make sense to just bring Snowflake east, and then you have that little corridor that's supposed to be the connector street up to 11200, and what would be done with that? I mean, yeah, could he sell it to those two and split it or do something like that? But then again, you know, would they be able to purchase it? And so would that make?
It'd be up to him.
Yeah, is there any, could he actually do something with that? And the connection down to Manor Drive, yeah, that is what was originally intended. But, you know, I've got 6 kids, and I understand that, that concern about, people coming through the neighborhood, and high school kids. I've got a high school kid too, and I've watched him take off, you know, and text him immediately. Hey, slow down. Okay, hey, don't text while you're driving. So, yeah, I don't, kind of back to what Claude was saying, I don't see a compelling reason to grant the rezone necessarily. I haven't heard anything or seen anything that would make me feel like, from the owner's standpoint, we're talking about, well, just put in the 4 lots. I mean, it's all a numbers game to him, and I was just looking up to see if I could find what he paid for it, if it is part of, if it's on the MLS, if it was an MLS transaction. But to him, it's a numbers game, and if you can't make it work with 4 lots, you know, it may not be that he's just trying to get as much money out of it as he can. It may be that the numbers just don't pencil out with 4 lots like it would with 5. So, yeah, at this point, I don't see a compelling reason.
Okay. Claude?
Haven't changed.
Okay.
No rezone.
How would you, Neil?
Coming in, I actually had your same thoughts, because I think what's going to happen long term, if we don't give a value proposition, somebody else maybe purchase that plot, which is west, I believe, no, east, right? Which then they're going to, if they do that, they're going to purchase the other plot right there to the east of it, and then they're going to try to rezone it and actually eventually connect Snowflake all across, right? And actually build more. Yeah, exactly, and building more houses, right? So potentially you might have someone that comes and just table everybody and just purchase all that big plot, and actually ended up to build more houses that anybody sounds like would like to. I like your idea, to be honest. I think it's out of the box, and at least to give a proposition to the developer to come back and see if they're open to rezone it. And I will be curious to see what he's going to also be doing with that strip of land that is just north of it, and that way actually address maybe the concern with the residents, also with the safety, but and he can also develop.
Audrey?
I also don't see a compelling reason to rezone. I do see it may be problematic with the road going north-south. That's his call. I would like to have someone is it Kevin, the developer? Kevin, know that people, if you were serious about it and working with your neighbor, that you guys were willing and could purchase that land and give them that option. Otherwise, I think there's no reason to rezone and to allow the natural flow to continue east-west.
Okay.
Sherry, do you have anything to add? If
Sorry,
you
I
could
forgot
just-
about Sherry.
It's okay.
I don't see any reason to rezone either, and I would just like to see him make it with an R140 and make decisions from there.
I've got one other question, Nathan, you might be able to answer this. Is there, in the code, is there anything about the length of the street? We talked about a dead end. If he just extended Snowflake to the east, that would take it, I'm assuming, past the 80 feet. And there would just be the turnaround again, and that would solve that issue? Is that the way that works?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds and I'll read it for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's one when it's a dead end, and then one when it's a cul-de-sac.
Okay. 'Cause that would be a long street at that point.
If you're the developer, I don't think you lose, right? Meaning, he might sit on this land for probably another 5 years if we don't let him rezone.
Yeah.
He's still gonna make money, probably he's not gonna make as much money as plotting it.
Yeah.
And somebody else, it's gonna happen, it's gonna naturally, right, it's gonna purchase the other 2 parcel, and then the rest of the point, they're gonna be facing the same situation that we're discussing right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, in a sense, his opinion might help the resident long term, because that's parcels develop, and also please the developer in a sense. That's why I agree to all the discussion was made around the R40, but I'm afraid that long term the residents are gonna lose.
So there's 2 specific requirements. So one is dead-end streets intended as access to future development parcels shall be a maximum of 1 lot depth and length. So the idea behind that is you're not extending a dead-end street 3, 4, or 5 lots deep, right? So, that's what you're trying to do. So if you look at Pace Manor, the idea is you could extend it once, but you're not doing it 3, 4, or 5 times. You're just doing it once, okay? That's pretty normal. And then, any dead-end street longer than 1 lot in depth shall have a temporary turnaround and not exceed 600 feet in length, okay? In any street exceeding 600 feet, you need 2 points of independent access. And that's where we run into the connection with Spruces and Pace and going north. Okay, in between that, you need the 2 points of independent access. And that's tied to fire code and a bunch of other stuff too. Or south into Manor. That's where we run into that requirement. And then when you talk about cul-de-sacs have a maximum length of 600 feet. Okay, and then you have your minimum turning radius, which is 50, and it's all engineering, and if you like math, go into engineering. But so those are the 2 provisions that we're talking about. So you have a maximum street length, 600 feet, without a second access, and then you have a maximum cul-de-sac length without a second access. Maximum cul-de-sac length also of 600 feet. Okay, so but you also have a requirement that proposed streets extend to the boundary lines of the land to be subdivided. So when you have a case where we know a street's going to exceed 600 feet, right? We're not going to say, hey, don't. Like a good example is on the right in the Spruces, that road exceeds 600 feet. Okay? But we know it's going to extend, and we know when it's done that you're going to have your 2 points of access, you're going to have everything that you need. So we're not going to stop and say, okay, we need to do all this other stuff. We're going to say, all right, you need to extend to the end. You're not going to do more than 1. You're going to do your turnaround. You can see we had a knuckle there at the top. And at the end, when it's done, it'll be what it needs to be. Because we can't say to them, hey, your property ends here, go talk to this property owner and get the right of way to build this road. So we only can say extend to your property line.
So does that mean that in this case as well, where if we extended Snowflake over and didn't do the road going north onto 11200, that technically wouldn't meet what you just said, but because eventually it's going to go through over to Spruce Drive, we wouldn't force the developer to put in that road going up to 11200?
There's two reasons we have to go north or south.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one is because of that 2 points of access,
Yeah.
and the second is infrastructure to get the looping and water pressures in the area.
Okay.
That's why we have to do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Okay, so you have culinary, you want, in a subdivision, you want multiple access points to, a subdivision for culinary water. So if one side goes down, you can still take a shower, or you still drink or flush your toilet. And it also helps to keep your pressure up for that shower or the dishwasher or whatever. So if you look at any subdivisions that we have, when they come in, you have one line coming in one way and one line coming in another way, and they come out ideally in more than a couple locations.
It also makes sure that when you get breaks, the fire hydrants can work either way. And you
and
don't
it keeps the water
get stagnant
fresh.
lines at the end of the water line. If nobody's down here, this water gets a little
Stale.
So it just keeps everything going. You actually think this stuff out.
You want to measure that, Kelly? I don't know off the top of my head. That's 750.
I'm just thinking about my girls who spend every day playing in their front yard, and so I don't know where this conversation goes.
Right.
I didn't expect there was going to be a conversation about a cul-de-sac at the end of Manor, and so I don't know how you proceed with this. If it's, you make a decision right now or a proposal right now, or if it's something.
The only thing we're making now is the rezoning.
That's a separate issue.
Okay.
All of this is
That's outside
separate.
of this.
Well, I will amend, if we're over 600 feet there, if you did connect Manor to Snowflake, would there be I guess there would be a wouldn't there be a stop sign at the end of the
At that
Manor?
T, there probably would be.
Yeah. I mean, personally.
That really isn't part of this, right?
I know,
now.
but you did ask my opinion, what would I want, the through street or the cul-de-sac, which effectively chops my lawn in half. I mean, at this point, I know you're not deciding on it right now, but I'm kind of thinking like maybe it makes more sense for me personally to have the T, or to have the street go through if there's a stop sign, because I haven't heard anything that makes me think that if they did develop it, that there's going to be the connectivity. And like you said, the road would provide that. I do care about that a lot. I'm not going to be crazy about more traffic going through there, but if there's a stop sign, that makes a difference. And if we're at 750 feet, 600 feet's the limit on that. So the cul-de-sac is not going to fix the length.
And that's with sidewalks as a boundary as well, for your kids in the front yard.
So I just wanted to amend
Appreciate that.
my comment.
Okay. All right, good input. I know this was but there's two issues there that I saw kind of collided with this project, and that's why you don't just move along, because it looks like the city's intent, if they ran all the curb and everything up when they did that road, was they were planning on that road going straight, so. But with that said, I think I like what Chris said. Hey, it's, if you guys are gonna turn down the zoning change, it's back to the drawing board anyway, so. But I think he'll get all these notes, right, Nate? Kind of what was said, okay. All right, well, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to
Okay.
reject the application for zoning change.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let's, should we do the roll call, is that right?
Yes, please.
Okay, Chris?
I agree with my,
Seth?
Yes.
Claude?
Yes.
Mino?
Yes.
Audrey?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I'm a yes to deny it. All right, let's, move along here. Public hearing, preliminary plat approval for 35 lot subdivision to be known as the Beacon Hill Plat, E, Phase 1 and 2.
All right, thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. This is a request from Perry Homes to receive preliminary plat approval for Plat E, another phase in the Beacon Hills subdivision, phases 1 and 2. This is the overall vicinity map. All here, north, south, east, is all part of Beacon Hills, and this is just another phase in the overall subdivision. Just basic background, there was a overall preliminary plat approval of this mentioned overall Beacon Hills subdivision, and this was approved back in 2002. There was also a signed development agreement, signed in 2003, and this development agreement involved details like lot sizes, density, open space details, all of that was in this, signed development agreement. It is R140 zoning with open space, meaning that by giving the city a certain percentage of open space, we allow them to have slightly smaller lots and just a higher density in their overall piece of property. And this Plat E was approved back in 2002 with having a max of 35 single-family residential lots for this piece of property, and they originally had lot sizes ranging from 11,816 to 23,034. Again, the preliminary plat review is not a discretionary process where it is administrative, so we have less discretion in making, or you have less discretion in making a decision as,
We have zero discretion?
yeah,
Like, if
limited,
this is-
yes.
Like, why is this in the planning commission if it's a done deal?
So planning commission's role in this is to make sure that they follow the requirements as approved
But you're telling us they
initially.
did.
We as staff will recommend that it is in compliance with it, but it is part of the process that it does need to come through again because the preliminary plat approval from 2002 has expired. Does that make sense?
Well, so if it's expired, don't they have to start over? Maybe we don't feel the same way we did 2002.
Because it was a development agreement that was signed by the city.
That didn't expire with the plat?
No,
No, it did not.
you're just giving a hard time, aren't you?
No, I'm just wondering, I mean, planning commissions do recommendations. Sounds like, I mean, we're gonna take your word on it, I guess, right?
I mean, that's why we present it to you, so you
All
can.
right.
Overall, it is 22.539 acres, and then, like I said, 35 lots, and they upped the lot size a little bit to minimum of 12,432, a maximum of 23,049 square feet. There is the included open space in their preliminary plat plan. Right here, where my mouse is parcel A, that's planned to be a detention pond, and then also in phase 2, these large parcels are all being dedicated to Highland City. The overall access, you have 2 points of access coming from North Beacon Hill Boulevard, and then this side over here on the west side of the property will connect down to North Cypress Drive.
So that last little piece you showed us, did those roads go in as well?
This,
Does that go in at the same time?
it's phase 2, so the roads in phase 1 will be put in first,
So
to my understanding.
who's putting that road in?
Yeah, it's Perry Homes.
at the same time they're doing this? Like, there's no lots on that. What's phase two?
No, they will do it as part of so, Platy's broken into phase 1 and 2,
Right,
and they will do it as part of phase 2.
and they're obligated to get that done.
Sorry?
Are they obligated to get that? Okay.
Yes. So overall citizen participation, we did hold a DRC, a Development Review Committee meeting on November 19th. We had 10 residents attend, that's including Zoom and in person. Overall concerns were about the elevation increase on the south side. Let me show that really quick. Here is set, this end is set a little bit higher than these lots. This is along Lausanne. And so that was a concern. And another was just increased traffic because you have the elementary school that's farther south, a few neighborhoods south, and they are just not wanting more children and more drivers to be going down their streets.
So is that elevation being built up?
Or
is it already
it's being met, just what they do for all elevation plans, they have to meet what it is at currently, but, yeah.
What was the elevation? Because I believe it's almost 9 feet, 10 feet between the road and the future development. Is the concern of the resident, I guess, water?
They would like a fence to be put in. They feel like it's dangerous for children because they have retaining walls right there.
I see.
So they've been asking that we require that of the developer to put a fence in. But that,
So did you require that?
no. Usually developers like to put the fence at discretion of property owners. And we as staff recommend that the Planning Commission should hold a public hearing, and accept the findings and recommend approval of this preliminary plat, with the following stipulations, which were all found in the staff report. Again, we're open to answer any questions that you may have, and, I believe Dan Reeve is on Zoom if you have any questions for the developer himself.
Who's responsible for the maintenance of the trail?
Yes, that would be us. If you open it up to public comment, we have a couple people that have hands raised, if you'd like.
Okay, this is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Rob Oakey at 12275 North Lighthouse, so just a little bit north above the subdivision. My question deals with kind of the access into that subdivision, and looks like one of those roads will tie into Cypress Drive. Because right now, if you look at the two east entry points to the subdivision, those enter all on the Beacon Hill Boulevard. And right now, Beacon Hill Boulevard, that is such a heavy and traffic point there. You just want to make sure that that subdivision is going to tie in. I mean, not only tie into Cypress Point, but is it also going to tie in either to Sutherland Drive or Grant Circle? You'd have to pull up a bigger plat to see the neighboring streets in order to see how that would flow.
Sorry, can you, repeat that question for me?
Sure. So I'll wait till you pull up the plat and you'll be able to, it'll make more sense. You can zoom in a little bit more. Okay. So the two street access points on on the east side entry, right off of Beacon Hill Boulevard, right there. Right now, Beacon Hill Boulevard is the main access point to all of those homes just north of everything that's out there, and will continue to be the access point of this subdivision and any other additional growth. Now, if you look on the west side of the proposal, it apparently is, that road is going to tie in to Cypress Drive.
Correct.
And my question is, I believe there is also a potential access point of maybe Sutherland Drive. And I don't, right there where your mouse is that Sutherland Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it looks like the other Grand Circle is already developed, and that's not a possibility of a through street there. So Sutherland Drive, will that also connect the subdivisions for both of those access points?
Yes. Mhm.
So, well, what happened? So, yeah,
yes.
so that Grant Avenue / Sutherland will provide a connection into this, Plat E, which will also connect to Cypress. So yes, to answer your question, it's kind of a round circular. Yes, there's 4. Cypress, Sutherland, and then, Beacon Hills Boulevard, and then there's also one that goes north to future development.
Okay, so that was my next question is, because Perry also owns the land just north of that subdivision as well, and I know the terrain, if you go just west of that area, the terrain is a little bit challenging for development, but I'm wondering, are they anticipating any type of a road that would tie directly into Highland Boulevard?
No, not directly to Highland Boulevard, not at this time. So,
because that's just a lot of traffic that will be tying into Beacon Hill ultimately, and that's the primary concern.
When Beacon Hills was originally done, yes, but not for the, and we have, what did they do for traffic on this one, Kelly? Let me look at we did have a traffic review on this one. Oops, wrong button, sorry. We did have a traffic statement, just for this plat, but yeah, we didn't do a full-blown study for it, but we did have a traffic statement. The applicant did submit a traffic statement.
The challenges that have occurred, like when in heavy winter conditions, Beacon Hill Boulevard is the only access point in and out of that subdivision primarily. And
Yep.
or in case of emergencies or anything like that, it is heavily congested. And so just making sure that there's other ways in and out of that subdivision is very important.
No, we agree. So we're doing our best to try to, one thing we can't do is prohibit access to parcels around. What we're trying to do our best is to diffuse traffic the best we can, so it doesn't impact any one particular area.
I assume these roads in connection comply with the city plan, general plan.
Well, they're all local, so they don't.
But I mean, as far as the density. Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else? Would like to comment on that before we go to discussion?
Yes, we do. Just give me just one moment. If you could just state your name, you can go ahead and comment.
Okay, it's Christy Vick. I actually live on La Seine, and back up to the property that's that we're talking about with the elevation change. We've had a lot of problem with water drainage. It's not only the 9 to 10 foot areas and the risk of liability with the people behind us falling into our backyard with the retaining walls, which is one of the requests that some of our neighbors have had with putting up a fence, but it's also about the drainage. So I have a number of questions that I emailed that I apologize, I got those in a little late. I didn't have the chance to get those in earlier. But what are the plans for excavating to prevent that drainage onto our lots? I know that the road where it's going to be built is actually about 7 feet high, and then it drops down in again to our property. So they could probably excavate and remove a substantial amount of elevation there to try to keep that drainage off of our property, as well as lowering it towards the street so that you don't have that huge step up into their properties. I'm wondering what the plans are for excavating. That's the first question. The second question is, what are the setbacks? Are we going to have a 10-foot backyard like we do in some of the neighborhoods around here? And then the third question I had was the lot on the southwest side that backs to the vacant lot. I believe it's lot number 501. What are the plans for the parcel A that sits next to that? Are we leaving it as natural vegetation like all the other weed infested areas around here, or are there plans to try to mitigate some of the problems that we've had with open space by improving this?
So parcel A, the one right next to 501, like you mentioned, is planned to be a detention pond, just with some cobblestone, is what I have been told by our city engineer.
Okay, I know there's a huge grade as it comes down that hill. So is it just going to be natural vegetation into cobblestone? And the adjacent property that currently exists that sits between the home on Ithaca and La Seine, is this going to be part of the improvement with this parcel, which is all part of the same drainage irrigation system area?
So Christy, you're talking in the subdivision to the south, correct?
Parcel A.
But
there's an area, the vacant lot that sits just to the south of lot 501 and a portion of parcel A sits in between the home on La Seine and the home on the corner of Ithaca.
Just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. So yeah, that will be excavated and also be retention, referencing what Kelly said with cobblestone. We don't have, this is preliminary, so the final design hasn't been completed with the landscape plans and things like that, but that will be a cobblestone basin upon completion.
Okay, and there's a lot of area that requires cobblestone. That's almost an acre that sits there. Are you going to leave the rest of it as natural vegetation?
again, the final plans aren't done, so I don't have an answer for you on that. Dan Reed from Perry Homes may be able to have a little more information for you. But we don't have those final plans yet.
Okay. Do you have an answer or for my question about how the land is going to be graded to prevent the water draining onto our property?
Not yet, no. We do, there is stormwater prevention that they will have to follow as part of their SWIP application that they'll need to submit prior to construction that they'll have to follow, but I don't have those details.
All right. And then do all the lots currently meet the standards for their current floor plans, or are they going to have some of the lots that are too small that they're going to end up selling to other developers for smaller homes?
That would be a question for the developer.
Okay. And do you have a question, or do you have an answer for that setback?
Setbacks, Kelly?
Those are just 30, 30, 15, so a 30-yard front setback, and then 30-foot back setback, and then there has to be 15 feet between the side and the side lot line, so 30 feet between.
So it sounds like it's pretty standard for most of the Beacon Hills area, but not Highland Hills area,
yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes. And Dan, if you'd like to make any comments, you're welcome to, but you don't have to.
Yes, this is Dan Reed with Perry Homes. Christy, to address a few of your questions, yes, to confirm the rear yard setbacks are 30 feet. The lot sizes are more than adequate for the home sizes that we would put here. Rarely, if ever, do we sell off lots to other builders. We build on all of our own lots.
Well, I know that you sold two of them in the development just to the east of us, so.
If we can make sure to speak one at a time so we can all understand, that would be great.
Sorry.
Dan, you can continue.
So yes, these lots are large enough to build the proposed homes. Christy, did that answer all of your questions?
Dan, do you by chance have an answer yet for how that land is going to be graded?
Sorry, there was a bit of background. Can you say that one more time?
The dirt road that comes through, if you look at some of those lots, there's probably 10 feet high between the road and the top of the dirt. That lot is level, and then it drops again back down into our backyard, which is about another 10 feet along down that road. Are you going to take some of that dirt out and level it out? Or are you going to keep it at the height that it is, where it sits higher on the front and the back of the property?
If I understand the area you're talking about the lots just north of your lots and the road above those lots that runs east to west, right? 12120 north. Yeah, part of the constraints on that road, there are existing utilities in that road that need to maintain minimum and maximum cover over water lines, et cetera. So it appears that the difference between the top of your lots versus the proposed grade of that road, is in the 7 to 9, sometimes 10-foot range. A lot of that grade change will be handled through walkout basements. And so I think you'll find that by the time the rear yards of those homes are graded to the edge of your lots, they are relatively flat. In addition to that, to solve the drainage issue, we have shown on our civil drawings a yard drain system along the backs of those lots that drains over to the west to the detention pond.
Okay. One last question.
Okay, you can go ahead. Uh-oh. Oh, she's right here. I believe you are unmuted, Christy.
I'm good. I think I got
Yes,
most of my questions answered.
yes,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you. Oh, did she say she's good? No further comment? Okay. We do have one more person that is, actually a few more that are raising their hands. Rob, you can go ahead.
I already spoke and the hand should have been removed. I'm good.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, and then Trevor.
Hey, this is Trevor Sorensen. I live at 6046 Lausanne, and I think we are just south of plot 508, if I'm guessing right. Either 508 or 507, somewhere close in there. My question is just on the bike pathway, or path B, I think is what it's called. So currently there's a plot of land just to the east of us that the city owns that is never maintained and just wildlife right now. I believe originally had plans for there to be a pathway through that, but has never been developed, I believe. I'm just wondering, is that path going to just dead end into that open area? And if so, what are the future plans for the open area?
So currently, so if I understand correctly, you're talking south of this development?
He muted himself just a second.
Sorry, I got little kids. I didn't realize you couldn't unmute yourself. Yes, that would be just to the south.
So currently, the council hasn't discussed a specific plan south. I do know, generally speaking, we are working on trails and funding trails and connections. One of the reasons that we are, as part of this development, constructing this portion of the trail is just for the reason that you mentioned, is in the past they haven't been, and so they haven't been maintained, and this will allow that to be maintained and wouldn't put the burden on the city to construct it in the future.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood. I thought the question was asked earlier saying who was responsible for the maintenance of the paths, and I thought that
Yes, we
fell
are.
upon the city.
The city is, yes, correct.
So would the assumption be that the city would maintain them as well as they're maintaining the current pathways?
So, so the council has funded additional maintenance to maintain trails, and they're currently going through planning processes to increase that. So the difference between the area behind your home and this is is actual asphalt and rock mulch to maintain versus just land, not just land.
Yeah, so I guess my question would be, so we're going to have a pathway that leads to nothingness for right now and not really a plan in place as to when we're going to develop the nothingness?
So the plan in the future would be to construct the path further south. I don't have a time frame to do that, but that's the plan.
So, and that's understood. I think from a citizen's perspective, hopefully you can understand where my concern would be. We've been here for multiple years and it hasn't been developed yet. So what's the goal of when it's actually going to be developed, not actually having a date or a goal as to when that's going to happen. So maybe I doubt a little bit that the plan will actually be executed, I guess.
Nathan, does the developer put this trail in or does the city put it in?
So in this particular instance, the developer will be putting the
So
trail in.
it'll be a condition of him getting his final or.
Correct.
So this one will actually go in. I think the problem in the past was developer dedicated the trail and then the city had a responsibility to put it in instead of putting it on the developer. So
Right.
this is a better route.
Yeah.
Because this trail will definitely go in. The other trails will need to receive funding before those will go in.
Yeah, so I guess,
Funding or donations.
so the question, I guess, is, so when they do this phase, they're gonna have 3 little pathways that are, what, 500 yards long, maybe? That lead to wilderness on the north and wilderness on the south?
So our choice is either to continue to do what we've done in the past, which is nothing, or put the trail in now while we have that opportunity. So we believe that the best decision in this subdivision is to put the trail in now.
And then with an unspecified date of when we're gonna finish the pathway next to next to the lot south of that.
Yeah, or north, yes.
Okay, any other questions?
We are good.
There is a gentleman right here.
If you could come up to the mic and state your name.
Hi, my name is Tim Levitt, and I am a resident at 6204 Sutherland Drive. So I am the last lot on the east, on the north side. So I come just, yeah, exactly right there. So just a few questions, and I was on a Zoom call and I wasn't able to unmute, so I apologize for interrupting. That's why I dashed in here. It looks to me, when I was looking at the county plats, it looks to me like the road goes right up against our fence line. Now, does that include any kind of, on that north end, it kind of curves over. It looks like parcel C, it goes to the city there. Our property's right to the left of that. Does that drawing include any kind of sidewalk, park strip, or anything like that? Because it doesn't seem to be very.
Is it inside that right away?
Yeah, so that's full right of way. So it'd be.
That's not
curb-
just the road, that is the
Okay,
sidewalk.
that's a right of way. That includes a sidewalk. Is there a park strip there that would?
Yeah, it'd be park strip.
Park strip,
everything.
okay. And that is, who maintains that Highland City?
Yep. Well, hold on. I haven't got that far yet, on that, but because we would own the adjacent property, we would maintain that. So whoever owns the adjacent property to the street maintains the park strip.
So that would be me, right? On to the east, to the west, adjacent property to the west?
Because we own that small parcel C.
Oh, because you own it.
Right there, the city owns that little.
That little sliver, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, very good. And then, I think there was on the phone I heard you guys talking about phase 1 and phase 2, but they're going to happen at the same time, is that correct?
Oh, 2 different phases.
Yeah.
So he's asking what the timing is.
Yeah, what is the timing, do you?
Dan, that's a better question for you. I don't know.
Yes, the intent of the 2 phases is that extension road to the north in phase 2 would be installed when needed to provide access to the properties to the north.
Right, and right now, I know Perry owns a bunch of lots over further east, but right now there's kind of an assorted number of owners there to the north. So my guess is that it's going to be it'll probably be a while before those are all put together.
It could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, okay. So that, I guess so that the phase 1 will go in, but that other road going to the north won't be put in until access is needed further north beyond this phase? Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're safe for a while.
Yeah, it should be a while. And then when that goes further north, will Highland City also be requesting, or I'm not sure how it works, will they be requesting open space further north of parcel B? Or is that up to the developer, or how does that work?
So further north of this?
Yeah, so when you do develop, when that road does go in, and I'm asking that for selfish reasons because that would help us with our view of the mountains. Does the city say we'd like to have some open space going further north, or is it just completely whatever?
No idea, because we haven't seen the layout or anything like that, so
Sure.
no idea.
Okay. To the north of us, there's it's owned by Blake Miller Homes. I know, and they've talked about putting things in there.
So
How does that affect
when you
them?
say north,
Sorry, just to the north of our property. So if you follow up, yeah, the north of Sutherland Drive, right in there, exactly.
okay?
That's owned by Blake Miller Homes. And they were talking about developing this year, but I think COVID slowed them down. Any idea on what will happen there and how they will be getting access?
So, no, I don't know, the plans there, but access will basically come. We've worked with the owners in that area to do a, agreement, with the owners to do infrastructure and access, and it'll basically diffuse and go, east and get to, through Cypress and through, to Beacon Hills Boulevard. But we don't know the specific alignments or anything. If you notice on this one, you have a connection to the north, right? You have that connection we've been talking about. Where are you going? So you have the connection to that one. You have a connection here. You have the other one that we're,
further north of.
Yeah, farther east there, Kelly, that we've been talking about, phase two.
Right.
Phase two, and then we have one farther to the north also, to try to diffuse that.
Sure. But as it stands, those are numerous parcels, so it's gonna be a while before somebody.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Okay. So the guys, so Blake Miller Homes, the property owner to the north of Sutherland Drive, they really can't do anything until those roads that's figured out, right? They're kind of landlocked, I'm guessing, in the meantime.
Right now, the north of you?
Yeah.
Right now, yes, they need to work together to get access out.
Sure.
Correct.
Okay. And then I would just ask the city to be conscious of we get a lot of trespassers on that property, and it's four-wheelers and kids starting fires and things like that. What is the responsibility of of Perry Homes and other property owners to restrict access, or are they even able to do that?
I don't know. That would be a state or local ordinance. So that property actually is not in the city right now. It's actually in the county.
Right.
So.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, do you have anybody else online, or you done?
No one else is online.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And Nathan, can you just so that we're all understanding, this is an administrative process, but we just got a bunch of public comments.
Correct.
So do we not address that and just approve is that how this goes down?
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about it in a minute.
We're hearing
So,
issues, but then we can't.
as we've talked about before, administrative review is limited to compliance with the development code. And in this case, it would be compliance with the development agreement for lot sizes specifically, and then the general layout, right? So when they did the development agreement, 2003, I want to say, 2003, the attachments included the general layout, lot size, everything associated with that. So, what the review does is, what we do is we look at that, and we look at our standards, and we say, okay, do they match? And when preliminary plat comes before you, that's what you're asked to do, is confirm that it meets code and that. So.
What do we do with all the comments we just got?
So the comments, as long as they're related to, expert testimony or things related to the code, we can address those. If there are comments like public clamor, like, hey, I don't like this subdivision, for example, those are things that we can't consider because the site is zoned. They have a right to develop according to that.
So this pretty much created a public forum for them to, for residents to get an answer to their questions and access to the builder, correct? Or developer?
In a way.
Because they already had a.
Yes,
Okay.
this is the second time, yes.
Yeah, because I did see, one of the advantages is they got to ask you questions and the developer questions, but I'm just saying, as us sitting here, getting ready to make a motion, to deny it would be based on, was this, like, the only question I had was when somebody said there was a 10-foot retaining wall and no railing, I'm like, well, that's not code, you got to have, but then that guy explained that he's going to do walkout basements.
Correct, so.
So that all makes
yes.
sense, but if that was a retaining wall, that's something we could say, well, that's not code, and you would explain.
Right.
Okay.
Or if they, for example, in an R-140, and the preliminary plat came to you and they all had 8,000 square foot lots, well, you know, we don't approve that, so.
Okay. So I guess I would ask comments. We just closed our public. Did you have a,
If you could come back to the mic, please. Thank you.
I apologize. This is Tim Levitt again from Sutherland Drive. I forgot to ask one of my questions. So now, when that road eventually goes in, or even the fact that it is going in, we're landscaping, getting ready to put our fence in. Does that mean now I'm becoming a corner lot and I have to abide by those?
It could be. I'd have to look at your.
but I would also
relates.
say, if you looked at that plat, there was that extra bubble that was there.
Yes,
That
yes.
gave the extra spacing that probably meets the view corridor part.
Right.
Plus you're gonna have that, open space that they're talking about.
Yeah,
so
across the street, yeah.
You'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you submit for a fence permit, they'll tell you.
Sure, okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Cool. All right, so we'll, open it up for discussion from the commissioners. If you have any questions on the administrative process of where we're at.
No, for me.
Jerry, did you have anything? We can't see you, so.
No.
Okay. All right, then I will, can you take us on there to the motion part of it? We'll go ahead and, take a motion.
Well, I would move that the planning commission accept the findings and recommend approval of the preliminary plat, subject to the 7 stipulations recommended by staff. 1, the final plat shall be in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat received October 28th, 2020. All public improvements shall be installed as required by the city engineer. The civil construction plan shall meet all requirements as determined by the city engineer. Parcels A, B, C, and D in Phase 1 and parcels A, B, and C in Phase 2 shall be dedicated to Highland City. The trail shall be 10-foot, I guess that's wide. Asphalt trail is determined by the city engineer. The asphalt trail shall be completed as part of the final infrastructure improvements and meet city construction standards as required by the city engineer. The asphalt trail shall be in the 30-foot right-of-way easement on the east side of the property. Review and written approval from the Metropolitan Water District of Salt Lake and Sandy shall be provided prior to the approval of the final plat.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Do you want me to do the roll call again? All right, Chris?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mino?
Yes.
Audrey?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, item 5, public hearing, ordinance, amend multiple sections of the development code related to the development review process. This is a legislative.
Yes, this honestly is involving what just happened. With, these are the basic overall changes. This illustration was included in the staff report just to give you a little bit of a better understanding of the overall change we're trying to make in this subdivision process. The preliminary plat, like we just explained, is an administrative matter. It is based purely upon if it conforms to code or if it complies with our code. And so currently, again, as explained in the staff report, we have a pre-application review, and then we have a development review committee meeting that we have. The intention is to be between staff and the developer to help the developer understand, or just to give comments on their plat, maybe changes that they should make before we get to planning commission. But currently, we do have to send out, according to our code, a 500-foot radius notice to all of the residents surrounding the property. And this invites all of these residents to come to our DRC meeting, which is between staff, the developer, and then residents that come. The intent was to make it so they could ask questions, familiarize themselves a little bit with the preliminary plat, but it has become a place of public clamor. And then we also, according to our development code, hold a public hearing like we just did for the preliminary plat. And again, we had to send out another set of 500-foot radius notices. So these residents around Beacon Hills received 2 sets of letters, one for the DRC and one for this public hearing that we just held. And then it moves on to final plat approval, which goes to the city council. Our proposal is changing the development code to put a little bit more emphasis on the relationship between staff and the developer and the pre-application review. This is before they submit the application at all. We have a meeting with them and discuss what is possible and the plans. That way we don't have the developer spending so much money doing engineering reviews, all that kind of jazz that they usually do before even submitting. And then obviously we have our normal reviews, our first and second reviews that we go through as staff with the developer. And then preliminary, as you know, goes through planning commission and city council. All we're doing is eliminating the need to have a public hearing at the preliminary stage. A few other changes in compliance with what I've just explained. This also removes the requirement for the applicant to hold a neighborhood meeting for conditional use. For those that don't know, a neighborhood meeting is when the applicant holds his own meeting. He sends out his own 500-foot radius letters, and he has to answer questions of applicants. And so we're taking away that portion of conditional use permit, but there is still a requirement to have a public hearing as of right now for a conditional use permit. And then the other point, we have been having people that would like to appeal decisions that have not yet been finalized, and we are clarifying that piece of our code to make it just to ensure that appeals are only for finalized decisions. And then the 10 days to appeal a council's decision, this is just, again, making it more in compliance with Utah State Code and other pieces of our code. And then this was another point, our city attorney just suggested that we do a, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the word. But just counteracting, so when we have a dispute, when staff has a dispute with the applicant, thinking that we say that it's an incomplete application or it's not ready for planning commission, they can request that it goes to y'all anyway without us suggesting it.
You want to add that to it?
It's more of, yes, it's more of a clarification. The actual wording is found in the staff report, and it probably words it better than I did. If you have any clarifications you'd like to make on that point, Nathan.
So
I
if they
didn't-
disagree
just
with you,
on the-
they can come to us anyways? Is that what that's?
in the form of like a dispute with us. If
But
it's
you
in-
also
It's already
ha-
in there.
You
It's already
also
in there.
have that they can't appeal anything that's not a final decision, so
Correct.
why would they be able to?
So what happens is if we are working with an applicant, right, and we say, you need to do X, and they say, I don't want to do X, and we end up banging our heads together for a while, they can say, I want to go forward anyways to resolve that dispute between, that's what it does. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
So, in the past, when we've had to do something like that, we have said, hey, in our reports, we've said, hey, everything's fine but this, and we need to discuss this, right? So,
And then just an overall analysis, again, this is just putting our city development code more in line or in compliance with Utah State Code. And, I mean, just as you just witnessed, public clamor is not to be considered for preliminary plat approval, and we're just trying to make it more apparent the difference between an administrative matter and a legislative matter, and not to unnecessarily confuse and frustrate residents, the staff, planning commission, council, all of us. And we, as staff, also did a little bit of extra research just to see what cities around us were doing, and only 3 out of the 10 cities that we looked up in Utah County, which are mentioned in the staff report, required public hearings for preliminary plats. So it's not like we would be an oddball to have this in our development code. Citizen participation, we did what is required in our development code, put it in the Daily Herald, it's on the state and city websites. We have not received any opposition or correspondence. And we as staff recommend that the planning commission conduct a public hearing, discuss the issues, and make a recommendation to the city council.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody online that wants to say anything?
Christy, do you have something for the development?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually have had my hand raised for quite some time. This was prior to the vote on our neighborhood before. I'm just really concerned about the open space on Plat A. I know that the city has had multiple challenges maintaining open space. We've had an open space committee that's been disbanded. We've had multiple challenges with this for decades. And to leave that as natural vegetation is going to continue to cause problems with the existing park that's already there. We're always facing the challenges with trees dying and with the weeds that are infesting that area. If it's completed just with sod, it should be ease of continued maintenance with the area that's just adjacent to it. And it would reduce the amount of weeds and the necessity for spraying for all of those weeds currently. You've already voted. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but I needed to express that concern.
That was an administrative process. So that would be something I would talk to maybe some council members and the mayor for making changes in how the city handles open spaces. But nothing we can do with this item that we just addressed, so. I live here too. I totally understand. I like what the city's doing now by requiring developers to put the trails in when they develop. That happened to our project. There was a trail that was supposed to get in, but, you know, the city didn't have the funds to put it in, so they gave up the easement, which changed what we agreed to. So I understand your frustration, but that's something that would go through a different process through, you know, talking to the mayor, the council, what we can do to resolve that going forward.
So
My
is the
preference
planning
would be to-
commission?
My preference would be to put it on to the developer as they develop their projects. Okay. All right, so any discussion on what's before us right now?
I really like the clarification. I think the public is a little confused as to what is administrative and what is legislative, and there seems to be some people who get very excited and come with a bunch of issues when nothing can be taken care of. So I think this is very positive action.
Yeah, I think also just having gone through this, the next time there's an administrative process, I will explain when I open the public hearing that this is a public hearing for issues with the plat, the code, our ordinances, not a place to bring up issues that was earlier in the process. I mean, if they still want to grieve it, I guess they could say it, but I just would tell them in advance, we can't address those, but we will address code like 30-foot retaining wall with no fence or something like that. So, yeah. I think we'll control that better on the.
There is one more hand raised. I just want to check and make sure if it's
Related to this item.
That's what I'm gonna ask. I wish I could do a little chat and ask.
I don't
but-
want to keep going back. We closed the public hearing.
Okay.
on the other items, so.
Let's keep it closed.
Okay. If there's no other comments, let's go ahead and get a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move the planning commission to accept the finding and recommendation of the proposed amendment based on the following that we barely state.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Chris?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
Bud?
Yes.
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 And I'm a yes. Okay. Item number 6, public hearing ordinance. Amend multiple sections of the development code relating to the conditional use permit. Okay, so we'll open up a public hearing.
Yeah, I will present it first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead
that's
and
okay.
present it, and we'll have
Thank
a
you,
vote.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the commission. Like the chairman said, this is a text amendment. Simply, the overall change is just making public buildings and public parks, public facilities in general, a permitted use in a residential zone rather than a conditional use. The reason why this is brought up, there have been several projects lately, specifically the park maintenance building, and then we had salt storage project, and then a community park, and each of these came with a lot of residential opposition. And again, a conditional use is also an administrative matter, and just, overall, when we come to specifically a park maintenance building, it is something that we as a city and its staff need in order to serve our community better and to maintain parts of these residential zones, and no one's really going to want it in their backyard, and that's something that is universal. And the reason why we're wanting to put it to a permitted use is this is still something that a site plan would need to be submitted. We would still go through planning commission and city council processes, but eliminating the conditional use permit requirement would eliminate us sending out the 500-foot radius notices and having to hold a public hearing as this for public buildings and public parks. We did what's required by code. We sent it to the Daily Herald. It also was a public hearing, and so we did have to send that out too, as a public hearing notice. And we have not received any opposition or written correspondence on this matter. We as staff recommend that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing, discuss the issues, and make a recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, we'll first have the public hearing opening, and then we'll discuss some questions. So. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody online that wants to comment on TA 2019?
I have no one online.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open it for discussion.
So it mentions in here, public input can be solicited without holding a public hearing. How, if we're eliminating the 500-foot radius and sending those out, then how would we be soliciting public input?
Oh, you can.
So if it's a public project, there's two or three ways to do it. One is through a design process where you are saying, hey, neighbors, look what we're designing. And you have an open house and they come in and they talk about it. Two is you can monitor agendas. You can do things like that. But primarily in this process, it would be anticipated that if a project like a park or any other building is proposed, that we are out making contact with the surrounding neighborhood.
Like knocking doors?
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, we have one we're kind of working on, and we went and talked to a neighbor across the street, and our plan is to talk to the adjacent neighbors. One of the challenges, as you guys know, with conditional use permits is just like plats, like you dealt with tonight. As soon as you say conditional use and you put public hearing, it implies a level of discretion, and if you remember, who was here? You may have been. We did a park maintenance building across the street over here. We did a salt storage building, and it was, nobody wants this in their backyard, right? And you add those words to it, and it becomes a discretionary, right? It becomes, hey, they don't have to put it here. I remember one comment was, well, I don't want it here, go put it up by Viewpoint. And the Viewpoint neighbors were like, we don't want it here, go put it over here. So, you know, it's a balance between, hey, we have a service that we need to provide, and we need to do it in the best location that we can. Yeah, and we want to be sensitive, right? We don't want to go in and design a site that, you know, chain link fences everywhere, and, you know, we're not, you know, we've been big spotlights up and stuff like that. But we don't want to have to, but the challenge is doing that balance versus, hey, subjecting ourselves to appeals and legal challenges and that kind of stuff because of the process that we choose to go through. I think that's kind of what we're getting at here is the commission and council feel that for, you know, lack of a better description, Mr. Spock, you know, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, right? So, you know, do we need to, for example, we may be coming back with a different location of a park maintenance building. You know, we do another notice, you know, we may have 30 people here, don't put it here, you know, kids are going to die. And then we're going to, okay, well, wait a minute.
So I understand that part of it. Is there a way to do it to where it is going here, but we want public input? Like,
what kind of input do you want?
Well, like when we did the salt thing,
Uh-huh.
there was great input about the buses that were pulling up there, the kids, the drop-off traffic, the line, and we actually adjusted some things and times, like I think we said time of when, the discussion wasn't don't put the salt thing there, because it was already a pile, I think it was already being used for that anyways, we were building a building there.
Sort of, yeah.
But that neighborhood that's up in that hillside that comes down, I thought they had good input. I agree that I don't want to put it out there as we're deciding if it goes here or if it goes here. No, it's going here.
Right.
What's your input? Here's what we've designed.
That would be the idea. The idea with that open house is where you would pick that up.
Right. So if we were, let's just take the salt thing, for example.
Right.
Would there be a sign that would be put there so that when...
So if I was to do an open house, like Spring Creek or Mountain Ridge Park is a good example, is I would say, hey, I'm doing an open house here, and I would do, not a sign, but I would do a radius notification, and I would say, hey,
I thought you said you just eliminated the radius.
Well, we are, because that's a public hearing requirement. It wouldn't be before the planning commission. It would be a separate night, let's say Wednesday night, just for kicks. or a Thursday night and saying, we are doing an open house to discuss this project, like we did with a road project, 6800 West. This is March, right before COVID went boom. That's why I remember it. But we laid out the plans on tables right here, and we invited the residents to come in and discuss the plans with us and say, what concerns do you have? How do we address the wall here? How do we address right away here? What about these trees? What about that?
And those findings would be brought to planning commission?
No, you get,
We
you
don't,
probably
or
wouldn't
we
even
just
see it.
attend, or?
So we just go to
Okay.
council for their approval. So that's what I would anticipate with public works projects. I don't anticipate any new ones coming forward. I mean, we're kind of done as far as those go. I may,
But we're changing.
yeah, well, besides, I didn't finish, besides park maintenance and Mountain Ridge, but those would be things that we would approach the community anyways. This is the community design process, this is what we're doing, we invite you to come and talk to us about it.
I
So,
just want to avoid somebody,
oh,
the ugly building goes up, they get totally ticked off because they weren't notified, there was no sign, I don't read your agendas all the time. I
no,
don't-
heavens no, that would be shooting ourselves in the foot to go through a process and start construction and then have pitchforks saying we didn't do anything. Well, wait a minute, we'd want to do something that we're notifying the people around, talking to them,
So just
knocking
tell
on
me what
doors.
that notification is. So we're not doing the mailer, we're not doing a sign. How would I find out if I lived up on that hill and the salt thing went in?
It would all depend, right? It would depend on the project. If I'm doing the salt storage, if I was doing that again,
Right, okay.
I may, okay, so in that part, I would go, okay, we know that there's a bus stop there. We know that Viewpoint uses that. I would be notifying Viewpoint saying, hey, we're proposing a salt storage, let's come talk to us about this site plan.
And you would have an open house.
Yes.
And then what assurances do they have that their considerations are being?
Well, because council would have to approve it, so.
So their concerns would go straight to council?
Yep.
Okay. As long as they have a public, I mean, that's my opinion.
Yes, no, that's, I mean, I'm not crazy enough to go off on my own to start doing stuff and, you know, and that, yeah, no.
What complication might cause if we leave the notification?
You can recommend it, I mean, it's just,
No, sorry, I guess
No.
I have the same concern. At least someone really noticed that there potentially could be a problem and therefore notified the right people. Yeah, you might run into a situation which
yeah,
people
you
are not
just say,
gonna be
hey,
notified.
we're fine with this, but we recommend you develop a, notification process for public projects. And that's perfectly fine.
Because I totally understand we don't want it here. No, it's going
Yes.
there.
Right.
So let's get a little input.
It's a balance, right? How do you,
Yeah.
how do you balance the two?
I
Because,
think once people know that it's
Right.
not moving, then they're gonna give it, okay, well, let's put a fence,
Yes.
let's put some trees, whatever it is.
exactly, it's just like a road. Once you get to,
Yeah.
hey, this road's being widened,
Yeah.
once you get to that point, then you can start having a discussion about.
Everybody's gonna say no.
Yes.
Because the same process, you might.
Took a vote of all the people up on that hill of the salt, it would have been 100%, don't put it there, so.
Right.
I totally agree with avoiding that, but as far as letting them feel like they have some input to soften it.
Yes.
or
No,
whatever.
I'd always recommend some kind of input in any kind of process you go through. You said you'd shoot yourself in the foot if you didn't.
Even if that was put into the utility newsletter or something about an invitation.
I would leave it within, personally, within the 500 feet rate. Because if I understand correctly, it's also the same process that we require a private developer. So it actually shows at least linearity between public and private, in which we follow the same process.
So private is actually a little different. So in a permitted use, like a house, you don't notify anybody.
No, yeah, it just goes in.
Well, they have to notify.
So is there a way to make it a permitted process and then also just notify, just so we know that they were notified?
In the past, I've done, what's called a courtesy notification.
Yeah.
Which is, hey, everybody, we have this application in, just so you know. If you have comments, you know, let us know.
And then if you get a
Kinda
big
thing.
uproar from that notification, then you do your open house.
Yeah, you can do something like that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey,
Right.
there's 20 people here that are upset about, okay, let's do an open house. But if
Right.
you only get one or two, just bring them into the office and say, what's your concern? Okay, well,
Right.
so, all right, I like that idea. All right. Do I have a motion? Or was there any more discussion? I'm sorry. Anybody else?
So just so that I understand, essentially, this is getting rid of the requirement to do the 500,
Yeah, so what this does is it moves it from a
from
conditional use to a permitted use.
Yes, yeah, so it's getting rid of the requirement, but not necessarily, I mean, we can still do it, it's just not required. What it's getting, but it's getting rid of the public thinking that they're able to change necessarily.
So we can change this to say it's a permitted process,
Mhm.
but there would still be a courtesy notification requirement. Right, did I say that right?
Yeah. Now, would that be?
Where that goes out, and then staff, I don't think we have to put it in there. If staff feels they wanna do a meeting.
No, council feels.
Or if council feels they
Right.
wanna do a public thing, because they got a bunch of,
Or depending on, you know, what the proposal is, you know, if I'm doing a well site, you know, if I'm doing a wastewater treatment plant, you know, I'm not gonna.
yeah. I just always feel more comfortable when somebody comes and starts complaining about something, you say, you've got a notification.
Yeah.
Well, I sent it to you. That's all I could do. Instead of,
Yes.
well, no, he didn't this time. So I like what Mino is saying.
Yeah.
It's a permitted process. Courtesy notification will be sent to the 500, whatever.
So that would be specific just to public buildings? Or to permitted use in general?
It's specific to, we can go
use.
back and we can create a site plan review process for this stuff, but this would be for public projects
So
specifically.
it'd just be for public project permits.
Correct.
So basically, everything you just said, it sounds like we might want to put that notification, courtesy notification.
Yeah. I like that, rather than just saying public input can be solicited, having an actual, like, spelling it out how.
Then we're covered.
Yeah.
And I think there are a few people who look for these to incite public opinion and get people riled up when that's not even applicable.
Yeah.
And they come here thinking one thing without having even known the facts about the project.
Right.
So I think this will help, really help
And the
clarify.
notification that you sent out says, this is getting a permit.
Right.
If you have any issues, please, then they're at least like abreast of it. I mean, if I were on council, and that way, if anybody came to me, I'd say, you got the notification, right? Yeah, but it's a little too late in the process now. It kind of takes that away, their excuse of, well, Nathan never sent me anything.
Right. Right. And, I mean, I remember years ago, got a call, well, what's going on over here? I mean, we had no clue. Because it was a post office. Feds do whatever they want, you know?
Right.
They don't tell us, right? You know, that kind of thing. So.
Okay.
So you mentioned before that something had been appealed.
Yep.
So that was because it was a conditional use.
Right, so it gave them the option to appeal.
Okay, whereas a permitted use, there is no option to appeal, and it gets rid of that.
So if the council acts, you always have an option to appeal.
Uh-huh.
It changes the standards of that appeal.
Okay.
So if we
Makes it more cut and dry, as far as their burden, in the appeal.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just takes it, we're
It
accomplishing
changes
the
the
same thing.
conversation.
We're just adding
Yeah, it changes the
a
conversation.
little bit more security that the public knew.
I mean, if I say to you conditional use permit, what does that mean?
Based
Discussion
on
and
some
debate.
conditions, we get a
Right.
pick and decide.
So not knowing, I mean, we deal with this stuff a lot, right? So, and we kind of get an idea of what a conditional use permit is in Utah, but the layperson out there, if you've never heard of it before, and you say, hey, conditional use permit, what are you gonna say? Like Seth, you're fairly new, I say conditional use permit, what does that mean in your head?
Yeah,
Oh, it's conditional.
yeah.
Oh, what does conditional mean? Maybe, maybe not, right? So in the grand scheme of things, I'd love to go through our code and dump conditional use permits because they're a nightmare. So, and say, do we want this in this zone or not, right? And if we don't, get rid of it. Then we don't have to have that argument. So let's say, one we dealt with was office warehouse. If we don't want it, get rid of it. Let's quit the ambiguity. And get rid of it. And then everything becomes, like we did with Apple Creek, everything becomes a legislative decision. And you get to have complete discretion over that, which is perfect. That's what we did with Apple Creek when everybody said, hey, we don't want any more apartments or, townhomes. All right, pull residential out. And then you can decide if this specific project's the right project. You got complete discretion over it. So
do you want to pull up what those things are? Because it says here the commission will need to draft appropriate findings.
No,
in this,
That's what you would come up with.
Can you show us the bullets again in which you were making recommendation to add or remove?
Oh. You mean the actual changes? That is just in the staff report. You mean the actual changes to the code?
Yeah, I think you show us early some bullets in which you said we are going to remove and list the bullets. That's what I saw early. Did I?
So could a motion be that we accept staff's recommendation with the following stipulation that there's a courtesy
Correct.
notice?
Yes.
So if anybody wants to make a motion, you can do it like that, and we don't have to read all of
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
I move that the Planning Commission accept the findings and recommend approval of the proposed amendment based on the following findings: that staff will have some mandatory courtesy notification.
Is that clear enough? Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Chris, yes?
I believe so, yes.
Seth? Claude?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And then
Sherry?
Yes.
Okay. 7, other business. Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about while we're sitting here?
Jerry, may I say something? And I promise you, to make it eternal, I'm not going to make it everlasting. Is there some sort of way that we could communicate to folks when they have public comments that there's a time limit? And I don't know what the legal situation with that is, because you want to be polite, but at the same time, you don't really want Cicero or Heraclitus.
So normally
up there.
what happens, if there's a big crowd here, we have a timer right there.
Yeah.
And because sometimes you'll get a big issue, and we'll say, look, you have to use your time here. When we have an issue that is there, like that one guy that stood up here for a while, it was a lot of good input because of where he was located. Because basically it set up the city that if their intent is to move that road through, we basically kind of negotiated that he would trade that little piece for the other cul-de-sac piece, to solve another issue that was there. So yeah, as a chairperson, whoever sits here, we can control that. But normally that happens when we see that there's a lot of people. We'll put a timer here, because we've had this room full before, and everybody wants. And then we also try to tell them, please don't repeat the same grievance somebody else just stated. If it's already been stated, please don't drag us through it again. But yeah, we do try to do that. But in this case, there was 2 people to comment, and they were in 2 pretty significant locations of that. So sometimes, as the chair, we'll let them. Because for me, I was trying to solve 2 issues. I think there's a real safety issue there. You saw that it was a 1 lot, and that thing was 7, 8 lots in. I don't know what our liability is if we know that exists and we put curb and gutter in to a dead end, and a fire truck goes down there and can't get out because the fire is now rotated to a different. That's the other part of double entry, is a fire can be approached 2 different ways. So anyway, that's why that kind of dragged on probably a lot longer than it should have. But it kind of put him in a position. You saw him come back up and go, I guess I would go this way. Okay, well, there you go, Nate. Just see if we can get our road to connect right there. Anyway, okay, that's good comment, Chris. Because I don't want to be here any longer. I'm telling you, when those meetings are there, I'm pretty adamant about the clock. Hey, dude, you're done. Just, let the next, because everybody wants to keep, especially when there's a crowd. They really want to keep going, so. All right, anything else? Okay. Let's see, action for approval of the meeting minutes. I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes for August 25th, 2020, and November 17th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 25th and 17th, 2020.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Planning Commission and Communications. So our next meeting is, looks like the 26th of January, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That'll be a new year and all of our problems will be solved.
Actually, okay. All right, do I have a motion? Well, is there anything else from staff? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn today's planning commission meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a great Christmas. Happy New Year. Oh. We have a hand raised.
Sorry, yeah, we need a second to adjourn.
Second.
I second.
Thanks, Heather.
I'll do it.
Heather.
The recording has stopped.